This is a review presentation from the July meeting on leadership development and discipleship. For starters, we need to talk about Jesus as our model. We notice at the very beginning of his ministry, he called men into a discipling relationship. Jesus called them to follow him. We notice that Jesus called fishermen and a tax collector. He was investing in these men to see that his ministry would be carried out through their ministry in the years beyond his own earthly ministry. So in Mark 3, Jesus appointed 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach and to have authority to drive out demons. All of this would then be a foundation that Jesus was building upon for the church in the years beyond his own earthly ministry. So Jesus was interested in the whole person. He was interested in building conviction. We notice in Mark 8:27 through 29, Jesus asks the disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And then he proceeded to ask the question, "Who do you say that I am?" Jesus wanted them to have it truly set in their minds who he was, what was his identity. Conviction is important, but so is character. We find Jesus teaching about kingdom values in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 through 7. We notice him teaching about humility and self-sacrifice, all relating to character in Mark 8 through 10. And he was interested in competency. Jesus let them experience ministry itself by sending them out in twos, and then by debriefing them at the close of that tour. So discipleship, understanding its nature, is important. For one, we need to understand that discipleship is a means to a greater end. What is the goal of redemption? The goal is to collect together from every tribe, people, and nation a people who will worship the Lamb at the throne, as expressed in Revelation 5. And how is that goal achieved? It is achieved by making disciples. So discipleship impacts all of life. If we create leaders apart from a Jesus-focused discipleship, we're creating individuals who will not serve with grace, who will not serve with generosity and a mission focus. To distinguish leadership development apart from discipleship is to create a false dichotomy. And leadership development apart from discipleship becomes overly skill-based. We can leave people more skilled and less sanctified. We don't really serve people well if we teach them how to lead without teaching them how to follow Jesus. So there must be a convergence of three things when we think of developing leaders. For starters, we must talk about knowledge. We have a core set of beliefs that originate with Christ himself. James 1:18 tells us that we receive a spiritual birth by the message of truth itself. And we know that we grow, that we mature through the truth of Christ. So we must talk about head knowledge. We must have an established sphere of knowledge that we want to pass on to those we are developing. So we need to ask the question, what is it that our leaders need to know? What are the competencies that they need to develop? But we're really after heart knowledge. For we know that if we have head knowledge without heart knowledge, we're going to create a disaster. All we have to do is remember King Saul, who was guilty of this. But we're also interested in service. Knowledge is developed through service itself. That leads us really to the second component, and that is experiences. You and I know that we learn best by doing. Ministry experiences put people in a teachable posture. Think about all the experiences the disciples had as they traveled with Jesus those 3 years. We need to avoid the false dichotomy of discipling someone versus inviting them to serve, because people are developed through ministry service. So, is there a culture of inviting where current leaders are encouraged to invite to serve alongside of them? The final component is coaching. Jesus asked his disciples penetrating questions, and Jesus responded to the questions that the disciples asked of him. We notice that he took advantage of everyday situations to develop them. Remember Jesus' question to the disciples after the storm? Where is your faith? So we should take advantage of those teachable moments. Again, let's think of an example of Jesus when he sent out the 72 followers in Luke 10. They were all excited as he returned about the power and authority that they had. But Jesus reminds them of what's really important. And so we must remind people why they serve. It's because Christ has served us. Do we have conversations then with those that we're serving in our church about their experiences? Do we talk to people about what the Lord is teaching them through it? The convergence of these things are important. We want them to provide knowledge, give them experiences, and offer coaching along the way. Several of the questions that have been presented in this presentation and are on your handout we are going to discuss at next Saturday's meeting. Thank you.